Since the late 19th century, the French culture has expanded globally to become one of the most influential cultures in the world. Many believe the phenomenal cultural expansion is largely attributed to the French attitude of elegance, nonchalance, and hedonism that's prevalent in its cuisine, fashion, and arts. In this tropical cosmopolitan melting point called Singapore, where many cultures coexist, the French culture is embodied through a kaleidoscope of events. However, is the French culture thriving, merely surviving, or declining in Singapore? How does the French culture find its place in this country far away from France? Let's find out through looking at several French culture aspects. According to the International Organization of La Francophonie, in year 2010, there is an increase of 5.7% of the world's population taking French as a foreign language. In Singapore, there are many ways to pick up French. Secondary schools, polytechnics, universities, and specialized language schools offer courses for Singaporeans to study French. We spoke to Ruth Ng Ying Hui, a French language student in Nanyang Technological University, on why she chose French.
I always think that languages are like a way to know more about a culture. It's like a door that you open and it brings you closer to the people there. And it's really fulfilling when you start understanding what's the singer singing or what some people are actually talking about. That's very, very satisfying.
Yun Zhou, another French language enthusiast who's currently taking French Intermediate Level 3 from the French language school Alliance Française, feels that by learning the language, one gains more insight on the French culture too.
By learning French, I get to know why certain French people behave this way, why Paris is so important. For example, you say ascend, it's like climbing up to Paris. You don't say I'm going to Paris. If you come back to Paris, you descend from Paris.
However, many French enthusiasts shared with us the non-French speaking linguistic environment in Singapore proves to be the biggest hurdle for those passionate about picking up the language.
In Singapore, French is not one of those 4 official languages, and you have to put in extra effort to find yourself the perfect environment or not conducive environment, let's say in Alliance Française, with a teacher to practice French. And when you turn on the TV, when you buy the newspaper, you don't see French, you don't read French.
Cedric Depardon, a French teacher from Temasek Polytechnique, believes only the motivated and strong-willed will carry on studying French to more proficient level, while many just stop at the beginner's level.
At the poly level, we have 2 levels of French. The one taking the second level, which I would say is only 10% of the whole cohort of taking French level 1. So it's very few, but those students are really motivated.
For those who are more excited in getting to know all things Française, they can join the many French societies set up in polytechnics and universities. Chen Qing, Vice President of NTU French Society, tells us the main events they organize to promote the French culture.
Yeah, we have French Idol. We also have French movie screening. We also have an annual event called NTU French Fair, which is cultural immersion. We're inviting a French embassy as well as Alliance Française to make a speech to NTU students about French culture.
We spoke with Samuel Ting, President of NUS French Society, on what the NUS French Society does, his passion for the French culture, and the barriers they faced in promoting the French culture.
We see ourselves as an intermediary for people who like French to come together to interact with each other. We organize events like movie screenings, picnics, French tables. Most of the students that come are actually exchange students, like students from France or Canada, but the Singaporean students are not exactly very enthusiastic because we actually organize various events and we advertise through classes, but somehow the turnout isn't exactly what we expected.
Cultural workshops that introduce the French culture in a lively form are a great choice for those who wish to experience the cultural similarities and differences. The Cross-Cultural Theatre Workshop, conducted by Mr. Quentin Bernard, a professional coach and actor, covers improvisations on various cultural themes. This workshop presents to the local students an opportunity to bring the local culture closer to the French students while learning more about the French people's ways to carry themselves and explore some of the deepest cultural faux pas.
We express ourselves through language. Therefore, the way we speak says a lot about the way we think.
Some students who are more enthusiastic and adventurous choose to go for an exchange program to France. Go Chongyang, a French language learner, went on an exchange to Telecom Business School in France during the last summer.
When I was in Paris, in general, most people could speak English, but I could recall a few incidents. One of them was when I was trying to buy tickets. The counter operator didn't understand a word of English. I had to pretty much use French, pure French, to try to convey whatever meanings.
Through being in France and interacting with the locals, Chongyang also found out that the stereotypes Asians have on the French are not to be taken seriously.
They are actually very friendly and warm people. I do not quite understand why people have misunderstood them as being rude and impolite people.
Pétanque, also called ball, is a French sport that has found its home in Singapore. The pétanque competition held at Top Royal Sports Complex every year attracts 20-plus teams from secondary schools, polytechnics, and universities. Mr. Eddie Lin, the organizer of the pétanque competition, aims to introduce the French culture to the youth in Singapore.
For 26 years, I was playing pétanque in France. I think it's a good sport to introduce for people who are not too serious in big sports. When we first started, it's only for senior citizens. So we thought that over the years, we'll have younger people coming in, and only the younger people are representing Singapore in all the international competition.
Talking to 3 exchange students from France, Ulix, Antonin, and Alexandre, we found out their views on the French culture in Singapore.
I think we can see some events of French culture. Even in the center of the city, we can find some events. Like we went to a cinema festival, which was organized by French people. So I think the French culture is quite okay here.
The French exchange students agree that Singaporeans should pick up some French, even if at a amateurish level. When asked what are the advices they can give to the Singaporeans learning French, this is what they said.
Well, maybe they should try to speak as much as possible with the exchange students that are here just like us. Try to see some movies in French also.
Try to go in exchange in France. I think it's the best way to learn French.
Well, I think if you have the possibility to get some French friends in Singapore, then it's perfect.
Through mediums such as language learning, cultural workshops, art and sports events, the French culture is able to mark its influence on the lives of many locals. However, it is undeniable that there are some difficulties for the French culture to expand its influence in Singapore due to the competition from the myriad of other cultures penetrating this small island. For the French culture to survive and thrive in this tiny island called Singapore, we still hope to see more initiatives and efforts because otherwise, the mission will remain a battle against the force of nature. This is Hurley, and you are listening to Radio Fusion Podcast.